And as they started discussing this, they came at it from a different perspective than maybe you've seen it in the past. And they said what they wanted to look at was the relationship of these pyramids to the stars. And of course that would be extremely interesting to us. And the reason is because each of us look for signs. We're looking to try to understand what is going to happen to this earth. What is going to happen to this universe? What's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your family? You have little children, so you have children going to grammar school or high school. What's going to happen to them? What in the world? And there's nothing that you can do. You're absolutely helpless if you try to say, well, there's a chair up here. Oh, okay. What's going to happen to the earth? What's going to happen next year? I mean, look at the world the way it is now as compared to the way it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Look at you the way you are now compared to the way you were some years ago. I mean, could you ever imagine you'd be even on a Sunday morning sitting, listening to this type of thing? You should be singing Amazing Grace, what a wretch are you, and listen about devils sending you to hell and all that stuff. That's what you did, see? But now all of a sudden you're listening to things that are real. I received a letter from a young lady from Washington, D.C. who's on the network, and she said, that she received the Pegasus tape, and she says, finally, there's something real going on. She says, we've been going to church and nothing is ever real, but she said, now this is real. And so it says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, when talking about the stars, let them be for signs. So there are signs. Somebody is speaking to you. And it's a language that you should be able to understand once you can look up. Al was opening the... Can you bring that page out? He said when he opened the magazine that Sean brought in, and he said he was awestruck by the picture in this magazine. And let me show you part of the reason why we have no idea what's going on in this world. He opened to this page, and he said, when you take a look at this, and there it is, it's this picture of the stars in the universe. And he says, when you take a look at this, he says, it's awesome. And who, the genius of people who put all of these things together and made sense out of them and created stories for you to understand in these things. Would you hold it up for the camera so the camera can see it? But I don't know how close you'd have to get. But here's the same thing. You, in your culture, in your religion, you take a look at that wonder, that awesome, magnificent thing. Let me just see this again. And you have gone to churches and followed religions whose main thing was, don't get involved in that. Don't look at that. Don't pay any attention to that. Can you imagine such a thing? And you wonder why everything's screwed up. Because those, and you know what we did? We did exactly what they said. Oh, don't pay attention to that. And they do it to this day. If you start talking to anybody about the stars and about the constellations and the zodiac, these people in churches run and hide. Oh, we can't talk about that. Oh, my pastor doesn't allow me to talk about that. But that's you. This is the house that you live in. It's like saying, we're not allowed in the bedroom. No, our pastor says don't go upstairs. What is it? What is it? A haunted house you live in? And they do it, and it's all done to. But my God. And so, and what's so amazing is that where all of this wonder is happening is exactly where church said don't look, right there in the stars and in the sky. So it's an amazing thing. But when we were looking and we started looking at this tape about the pyramids of Giza, and the Egyptians had deep myths. Last week, remember, we got deeply into the myths of Greece. And the people of Greece, were the people who gave us the knowledge of God as a person. Zeus was running around with all the pretty girls and doing all this stuff and carrying on and so forth and so on. All of a sudden, God wasn't on a mountain in smoke anymore, like in the Old Testament. There was smoke billowing out of the mountain, and God's up there. Oh, geez, let me get away from the mountain. Nobody, don't dare touch the mountain. And the next thing you know, after the Greeks get their hands on this stuff, what's happening? God's having sex with a girl named Mary. What's happening? All of a sudden, what happened to this? He's no longer up on a mountain. He's down now, and he's getting a girl pregnant. Well, see, that's pure Greek myth that comes out from Homer and the Odysseys and Plato and all of this kind of stuff. So this is where this comes from. But see, so we talked about Zeus, and what did we learn last week? Something amazing and something very interesting. In the Bible, Jesus in the book of Revelation calls himself Amen. And Amen is Amen-Ra, who is the ram-head Egyptian solar god, which in Greece is Zeus, which makes Jesus Zeus. As bizarre as I challenge you, when you leave this place, go to the Methodist church or go to the Baptist church and say, hey, we found out who Jesus is. Who is he? Zeus. Oh, my God. Where were you down that basement? You must have been down that basement to hear that stuff. Stay away from there. So, but when you understand this, see, it says in the Bible, and behold, heavens open, and I saw a white horse. Well, the only horse that could possibly be in heaven is Pegasus, which is the winged white horse. And we found out that the only one who can ride Pegasus is Zeus. And there in the sheath of Pegasus are contained the lightning bolts that Zeus throws at all the troublemakers. And Jesus is quoted in the Bible as saying, as lightning slashes from the east to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So we learned about Zeus, and we learned about the connection with all of this, and now we learn about something else, because we unearth away from Greece a little bit, and we start digging into the sands of ancient Egypt. And as we dig into the sands of ancient Egypt, we find deep myths concerning Osiris. And then we have a connection, you'll see a connection with Jesus and Osiris. And see, this was these things, why you see this spillover between Egyptian and Greek is because you had this connection, because they were, Plato spent much time in Egypt. I mean, they were interacting back together with one another, see. But they had these deep myths, and this was the myth. The myth was that when Osiris was killed by Set, which you know as Satan, his body was carried off into heaven, and he became the constellation Orion. Osiris is Orion. See? And his wife, sister, and consort, Isis of Israel, when she left this earth, she became the constellation Sirius, S-I-R-I-U-S, sitting next to Orion. So in the Great Pyramid of Khufu, as we watch this thing that AJ brought, it's just, I can't wait till we get the big screen, we get the TV down here, we're going to show you that. You can't imagine. See, in the Great Pyramids, what they showed us on this thing, they have a shaft going up from the king's chamber. It goes right out through this. I mean, can you imagine taking this thing? Nobody can even figure out how they built this thing. But then you have this shaft that goes up, and you have one going from the queen's chamber. And so what they did is, where are these things going? They go at these angles. So astronomers then took the sky as it was in the time this was made, and they positioned everything in the sky. And lo and behold, guess what? The shaft from the king's chamber goes right smack to the belt of Orion. Right to the belt of Orion. And from the queen's chamber goes right to Sirius, Isis. Oh, wow. So what I'm saying, what they knew exactly. But can you imagine being able to build something like this? So here then we have, and now you'll have to understand, when we show you the connection, if you're going up to Orion, you're going up to Osiris, you're going up to Zeus, you're going up to Jesus. They're all the same thing. And when that pyramid is built to connect to Jesus, to Zeus, to Orion, to Horus, then you have to think of something else. Whoa! This is a demonstration in the desert of something that exists elsewhere. You are loaded with pyramids in your body. You have to, I'm going to bring you next week the medical list of you have all kinds of pyramids in your body. And the pyramids in your body, what are they for? And I'm sure you're going to find that they're to put you into contact with the same magnificence that the pyramids in the desert put you into contact. There was a very interesting thing. And when they were lining up, in this tape, when they were lining up the pyramids, okay, they showed one pyramid here and one pyramid here with a perfect, absolutely perfect, line up. But then they showed a smaller pyramid over here. And so the question was, why are this perfectly aligned, and yet this one is over there? So the astronomers and these scientists and everything went out one night. I guess they were having a few cans of beer or whatever, sitting out in the desert and sitting, having a smoke or whatever they do. And they were sitting out there. And one of the guys said, boy, the belt of Orion is really beautiful tonight. You can see it. The guy said, where is it? I said, well, there it is. And he looked up, and he saw the belt of Orion. And there was one star there, and one there, and one over there. And he says, I looked, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. And he said, I know what it is. I know what it is. And he knew, and so, see, and then, not only this, but when you look 300 miles away, you'll find another pyramid in another part of Egypt down here, and it is, when it looks from this distance, it's an exact duplicate of Orion. And so what did the guy say in the tape? The astronomer says it would appear that the Egyptians were trying to bring heaven to earth. So we'll show you that tape when we can. But see, so this is exciting. These are exciting things to see. See, Osiris, Orion, was the father of Horus through Isis. In other words, when he died, Isis laid on the dead body of Osiris, and miraculously through a virgin birth conceived Isis. And Osiris then resurrected through the wheat. And Osiris, as he resurrected through the wheat was taken, and they made bread of the wheat, and they took from the barley and made beer. And people would eat the bread and drink the beer, and that was the body and blood of God. That's where it all started from. You see, communion started as cannibalism. That's where communion started. Holy Communion, you walk down to church and you're going like this, and that started with cannibalism. And what they used to do, they would take the smartest person in the crowd. And they would say, today is Communion Sunday. And the smartest guy in the crowd would head for the door. What is that? Because they were going to chomp on this guy. And the reason was, they felt that if they would kill this person and eat them, then everybody, so it said, it is good that one person dies for everybody else. So they become like this person. Well, the Osiris culture got away from that, and the Osiris culture brought them to the point where Osiris resurrected as wheat and barley, so they had bread and beer, and they took as the body and blood. And then when the culture moved to Greece, Osiris was replaced by Dionysius, who was the god of wine. And so it became bread and wine, and that's where it comes from. And so then you understand the Greek influence here. When you look at page 871, just take a look at it for a minute. In John chapter 6, page 871, John chapter 6. And here's Jesus making a statement in the Bible. And in John chapter 6 and in verse 54, what does he say? Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life. Now, how would you like, they think I'm a cult leader down here. How would you like me to this guy? What if I bring you down here? We're going to have a special meeting. We got this guy Jesus coming in. What do you see, this guy? Whoa, he's something, boy. He's got sandals and a white robe. 12 funky guys he hangs around with. And this guy gets up here and says, folks, we're going to have it tonight. You ready for this? I want you to drink my blood. Now, how many of you would be left? You wouldn't even be here until the sentence was over. You'd be out the door. So he's talking in the symbolisms. He's talking in the symbolism. To drink the blood means to consume the spirit. To eat the flesh means to understand the truth. So unless you understand the truth and consume the spirit, you're not going to have any part. So a lot of people in the New Age today, they're anxious to drink the blood. They want to consume. In other words, they want to meditate and float around the room and put rocks on their head and wave smoke and feathers and all of this stuff, and that's fun. But they don't understand anything. They don't know the connection of it. You've got to understand. You've got to understand the documentation. What are you doing? What's supposed to happen? And that's what I'm trying to share with you, okay? In the courts of Osiris. Now, I'm going to show you something. Now, you listen up here, because what I'm about to show you, I found yesterday, and I shared it with Joan, and I've checked encyclopedias, and I really don't think anybody else has seen this. in the world. And I think you're the only ones, but I think we found something as we dig in our little archaeology. But in the courts of Osiris, when they would bring a body in to be, whatever they do with them, buried or whatever, they had their funeral, they would lay out the body and they would put a pine cone on the forehead of the person, which symbolized the pineal gland of the brain. Because they understood it as the pineal gland of the brain, as Rene Descartes said, that's the place where God and man meet together, at the pineal gland of the brain. In Genesis 32:30, Jacob says, I've seen God face to face. I'll call the place Peniel. It's the single eye, the third eye, the seat of the soul. And Osiris was the god of the all-seeing eye. And his son Horus was the eye of Horus. So Osiris became the great orb of the sun, the all-seeing eye. And I want to show you something interesting that as I looked at this, I said, I see something. I see something here. I think see if you can see it too. The all-seeing eye, God. The word os, O-S, is a medical term that means open, opening. And look what the rest of his name is. Did you see it? The open eye. Osiris. So look at the connection. This is the open eye. Orion, Osiris, and you have Jesus saying, if your eye be single, if your eye is open, your body will fill with light. So there's a real connection. Look at page 781 in Matthew. Isn't that interesting? And I'll tell you something right now, and I am sure, because I've checked every encyclopedia, and I haven't seen anybody else commenting about that. I think you're the only people, can you imagine a bunch of scruffy people in the basement of Vito's basement in Fork and River, the only ones that know this? And well, I mean scruffy people. I don't mean you're scruffy. No, you're not scruffy. Yes, yeah, fluffy. You're a bunch of fluffy people in the Vito's basement are the only ones that know this. Now, but you can see it. It's in the same word. It's in the same way as you see the word Israel. You have Isis, who is the spirit. You have Ra, who is the sun god, who is the mind. And you have El, which is the bull cult of the bull Mithra cult, and means power inside of you. The bull. It's angels. All the angels are named Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. So in the same way. So now you'll start looking at these names, won't you? Because you'll see things. But see, when I said, I hope this works. I go into these things. I go into these dictionaries. I hope this works. And when I got into the medical dictionary, I looked up os, and it said open, an opening. And then, of course, I didn't have to look up, but I did. I looked up iris, and that's the eye, the open eye. Whew! That was it. I said, wow, this is great. This is great. And so now we have this. We have this open eye. Now look what's happened. Now you understand something much more. Because now that shaft going up from the pyramid is going up to what? The all-seeing eye. And the all-seeing eye. And then the connection, we made the connection to Zeus. And look at the connection we're making to Jesus. Because on page 781 in Matthew 6 and verse 22, look what he says. Page 781, Matthew, if your eye is single, your whole body shall be filled with light. Open the all-seeing eye. See? So now we have a real deep connection. And I'll tell you, let me share something else with you that I haven't broken yet, but I think we got something here. And when I get done looking at that, the Orion is the gate of God. This is where all of the electrical energy comes down. This is what they say. All of the electrical energy comes from the universe, comes through the gates of Orion. And I haven't been able to find this. But I have been able to find this. An ion are charged electrical particles. Or ion. I really believe that. So I got to find out where this or fits in. But I know, like oracle. So whether this is speech or the energy that comes from the direction is the electrical charged particles, Orion. I really think there's a connection. Does it look like it, Albert? Yes. It's an ion. Huh? Yeah. So so we're digging, we're unearthing things, and we're taking this one step. So work on these things, because some of you have been coming along and showing me some great things, and we work on this together to find this. So the principle of life, making the third transmutation of the fiery sun, or as the world in Egypt would say it, Osiris, an eye. And this is what's written in Egypt. It is Osiris tenderly watching its wife, its daughter, its sister, Isis, our Mother Earth. Our Mother Earth. And here in your brain, what did we find last week? Who dwells in the innermost, most tender part of your brain? Pia Mater, the tender, affectionate mother. Mary, Isis, Fatima, call her whom you will. See. Of Isis, Hermes, the great god of Egypt, said, her father is the sun, and her mother is the moon. So we then see these lights, or the shaft, reaching from the pyramids to Orion and to Isis. There was a guy, an Egyptian Oersted, said that the laws of nature are the thoughts of God. So why is it important that this pyramid shaft goes to Orion or Osiris? Because it confirms the universal nature of this. And see what we've done, we've picked up this thing. We come out of Newsweek magazine, we come out of the New York Times, we find these discoveries that are being made in the heavens now that fulfill the prophecy of the Bible. But now, as we've dug into this thing, we've come up with the involvement of Greek mythology and Zeus and Pegasus. And look what we found last week. Pegasus riding with Bellerophon on its back, and Bellerophon destroying all of the evil in the world. When the evil is destroyed, Bellerophon says to Pegasus, now we will go to Mount Olympus, and I will sit with the gods. And Pegasus looked and reared his back up into the air and threw Bellerophon off of his back. And then Pegasus wandered through the stars and wandered through the heavens. And then he saw something in a fluffy cloud a long distance, and he moved towards it, and he got near a building that said, Zeus's stable. And there he stopped, and Zeus said, you, Pegasus, because you would not let people, you would not let anyone use this power for their own gain, you will stay with me, and you will be my steed, and you will carry my lightning bolts. And so Pegasus now is with Zeus, and Pegasus has returned, and the star that has brought you back to the point of Aquarius and saying, this is the time, this is the age, is in Pegasus. And we find that now we are dealing with the all-seeing eye. And when you come into meditation, and when you sit and you meditate, the all-seeing eye opens, which is the pineal gland of the brain. And the all-seeing eye secretes melatonin into your body, if you're willing.
Well,
yes. You have to. Yeah. Can you?
You ever notice on the back of a dollar bill?
Back of a dollar bill.
The single open eye on top of the pyramid?
The all-seeing eye. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. But you see, you live in it. It's part of your life. It's trying to communicate. It's in your body. It is the most important gland in your head, but it atrophies when you don't use it. That's why the doctors today, they're saying, well, yeah, melatonin secretes when people are sleeping, because they say the only time that people are in the dark is when they're asleep. No! They don't understand that you're in the dark when you're in meditation, and that all-seeing eye opens, and the melatonin flows. And yes, that all-seeing eye is exactly, and it's on the top of the pyramid. And don't forget what else. As it says that Jesus in the myth says he will come back and set his feet upon the Mount of Olives. And so they're all waiting for the Mount of Olives for somebody to come out of the sky. But in your brain, the hypoglossal, one of the 12 nerves that correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac, it says the hypoglossal winds its way up at the top of the spine and exits at the pyramid and the olives. It's inside of you. And so when he sets his feet on the Mount Olives, it means it's inside of you. It's in your consciousness. Zeus intercourses with Callisto, and they have Arcas the virgin. Osiris intercourses with Isis to give birth to Horus. God intercourses with Mary to give birth to Jesus. On the 25th day of March, the ancient Egyptians celebrated the resurrection of Osiris. They celebrate the resurrection of Jesus and chicks and bunnies and jelly beans. I want to tell you a story of Eradmus. A-R-A-D-M-A-S. And Eradmus was going through the great initiation in Egypt. And you go through the initiation. You go through the initiation when you go into meditation. And many of you do not, I don't say many of you, but many are not able to go through the initiation. Because when you go into meditation, you don't get anything. You get upset. or the thoughts come in, or you get scared in meditation, or you start thinking of things, and you think, I'll never get it. And what they did in the ancient times, they would put a person into this mythological cave, and this person would wander through these different corridors, and they'd find scorpions. It was like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, until they finally got to the place. And Eredemus went through all of this, and he was beaten, and he was battered, the way many of you are beaten, battered, and you give up on your meditation. But Eredemus didn't give up. He persevered, and he came into this room. And there was this circular room, and he looked up through this dark hallway, and he came into this room, and there, as he looked up above his head, was a giant closed eye. And Eredemus just looked at it. It was the all-seeing eye of Horus, the son of the eye of Osiris, the son of God. And as he looked at it, suddenly the eye started to flicker. And then the eye opened, and there was this tremendous glare, and this whole place filled with such light that Eredemus had to close his eyes and put his arms up. He couldn't stand the glare and the brightness. He staggered. And then after a while, he just lifted his hand, and there was a gentle, beautiful glow in the room, and the eye was open, and a soft blue light was shining down on Eredemus. And he looked, and there was 12 men, 12 people in this white robes, and they pointed to this winding staircase going up to the top, and they motioned to Eredemus, and he started walking up, and he got to this golden door on the top of the staircase, and he opened the door, and there was a beautiful sunny day, and the wind was blowing, and the air was pure and clean and wonderful, and the golden sun shone down upon Eredemus. And then he said, where am I? And he looked, and he looked, and he said, I feel like I'm on a mountain. And he looked, and he was on top of the pyramid, standing on top of the pyramid. He had made it to the very top of the pyramid. That's what you're trying to do. That's why you're loaded with pyramids in your body. You've got to get to the top of the pyramid. And as he stood on top of the pyramid, there was a voice that said, behold the sun, Eredemus. And the voice said, here, the sun brings the mighty globe out of the darkness of night, and so for you, the Son of the Spirit has risen. And in the name of the living God, we hail you, priest of Ra. Om. Om, Om. Every one of you has a challenge to go through those dark, tangled hallways of your mind, to find that circular room, the temple, where the all-seeing eye will open and show you that light. And the 12, which are the 12 nerves, will point to the stairways inside of you, and you will rise and enter the right side, and there you will stand on top of the pyramid and be considered a priest of Ra. And that's the sun star. The sun star returning in Pegasus and in Virgo and in Ursa. This is a sign of the coming. And I get letters from people are really doing it. There's so much violence going on in the world. It looks like Armageddon. Maybe the prophecies are right. Maybe these Christians, maybe all of this stuff. I see these bombs are blowing people up and all of this stuff. Fears and wars and wars. Folks, just let's take this country alone. Just take this country. There was a Revolutionary War. There was a Civil War. There was a Spanish-American War. There was a First World War. There was a Second World War. There was a Korean War. There was a Vietnam War. And you saw Hitler burning people in ovens by the millions. And you saw Americans dropping atomic bombs and incinerating cities of millions of people. It's over. You never had a time in the world when there's been such peace. You've hit the bottom, and you're starting upward with the man of the pitcher of water. And there's no sense of sitting and talking about the fear and all of this stuff. Let's take a look for a minute. Let's take a look at page 801, Matthew chapter 24, because it's very important to look at this when you look at the signs of Pegasus and the signs and the stars. And in Matthew chapter 24, in verse 3, it says, and he sat there on the Mount of Olives. Where did he sit? The Mount of Olives. You see that? The disciples came saying, what will be the sign of your coming? Remember what does it say in Genesis in the first? Look, you just see that? What will be the sign of your coming? Go to the very first page of the Bible. I want you to see it with your own eyes. What will be the sign of your coming? Did they just ask him that? All right, what does it say in the very first page of the Bible? In Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, that's the stars, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs. So what will be the sign, Jesus? We've already gotten our directions. It's the stars that are going to tell us the sign. The stars are going to speak to us if we'll look up. If we'll get the heck out of church and look up in the sky. And so in Matthew 24:4, he says, don't be deceived. Take heed that no man deceive you. There's no reason for you to be deceived because you can see the signs and the stars. Now look at verse 6. Oh, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. As I just got done telling you, there's no wars. Sure, people blow up a bus and these things are terrible. But I'm talking about times when when the United States drops a bomb on a city and everybody in the city dies. Or they drop fire bombs on Tokyo and set the whole place on fire. We have floods. We had floods up there in Avenel, and these are signs of the time. Folks, a few years ago, the whole country of Bangladesh was underwater. And in the early 1900s, San Francisco practically was leveled. There's an earthquake in the earth every 30 seconds somewhere. It has to be an earthquake. Oh boy, how they thrive on fear. Nation rising against nation. Well, look what he says in verse 11. And many false prophets shall arise. Go to page 627. I want to show you something. 611. Many false prophets are going to arise, so says Jesus. I want to show you something about the false prophet. And you see them on television all the time. I saw a guy on television the other night. His name was John Hagee. He's about 3.5 foot tall and weighs about 600 pounds. And this guy was a man of God. And he's pointing a finger at everybody and yelling at everybody. And then he says, and the working class of America, the way, glory to God. The working class of America is working to fill, and so who? Because then these parasites on welfare come and suck the money. I say, you bum. Parasites on. He's calling the poor and the broken and the hurt people parasites, and he's a man of God. He says, what consistency does he have with Jesus? That's the way they are. Peddlers of fear and hate, and people who would. The religious right is so comfortable with people who want to take Medicare away from old people and take assistance away from the poor and assistance away from the hurt people. They're so comfortable with that. I shouldn't get involved with that. I didn't even say that. But look at Jeremiah chapter 5 and look at verse 13. I told you, 627. I did not.
Hello, Cheryl.
This is Cheryl. And Cheryl lives in Newark,
Jersey City.
And Cheryl drives a bus and every day brings her bus into the Port Authority terminal.
Yeah.
So I was saying tonight, you're going to be all right driving home alone, Cheryl? So she told me when she drives, she's going to be all right. It was good to have you here again. Thanks for coming. All right. Now let's look where it says the false prophet. Look at Jeremiah chapter 6. No, Jeremiah chapter 5. Are you there? Page 627. All right, that's a good idea. All right. Page 627, Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 13, and this is what God says. And the prophets shall become wind, and the word is not in them. Wow. So, but you're told to respect the prophets of God. He just says a bunch of hot air, a bunch of wind. That's what they're about. And they're a bunch of wind because they get the astronomy book and they tell you, don't look at that. Ooh, don't look at that. Ooh. You start looking at that stuff, pretty soon you'll get smart. We don't want that. I want you to believe that Adam and Eve were two naked people running around with no shorts on until they met a very nice snake who said, hey, you don't have any shorts on. Oh, that's all right. That sounds religious. Glory to God for that. All right. Look at Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 31. See verse 30? The prophets prophesy falsely. Get this next line. And the priests, I should ask, and the evangelists bear rule by their means, and my people love to have it so. And what will you do in the end thereof? You're going to listen to these guys, and they're going to scare the hell out of you. And they're going to put you into all kinds of fear and guilt and make you sick. But it says, look what they're going to do. They're going to listen to you. I want you to go to page 634, Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 14. In Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 14, he said, the Lord said to me, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither did I speak unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, and a thing of nothing, and a deceit of their own heart. The prophets. I sent them not. Look at verse, go to page, 642. Jeremiah chapter 23. Look at verse 16. Jeremiah chapter 23, and in verse 16, thus says the Lord, hearken not to, don't listen to the words of the prophets that prophesy to you, because they make you vain. They speak a vision of their own heart, and not out of the mouth of the Lord. Don't listen to them. I didn't make this up, did I? What do you think? I was down here last night printing my own Bibles up? All right, come on, I got to get this page now. I'll put this in. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Look at verse 21. I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. And look at verse 23. Am I a God at hand and not a God far off? Why? Because he's within you. Look at verse 25. I have heard what the prophet said. That prophecy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. I just want to go to verse 30, and I want you to read it with me. Therefore, behold, I am against the prophets that steal my words, every one from his neighbor. I'm against the prophets, said the Lord, that use their tongues and say, he says. Did you ever see? Thus saith the Lord. They say, oh, thus saith the Lord. Would you get up, Brother Baxter, and read that? Yes, thus saith the Lord. Yeah. And then what does it say? I am against the prophets that use their tongues and say, thus saith the Lord. He saith. Behold, I am against them that prophesy false dreams, saying, the Lord, and do tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies. Cause my people to err by their lies. Here is God saying, let the stars be for signs. I named all the stars. The stars have an effect on people, and they're all in the Bible. And what do you have? You have these prophets coming saying, thus saith the Lord, don't do that. And it causes my people to err. I'm against them. Yet I sent them not, nor commanded them, and so forth and so on. But the sign. What is the sign? When will you know? Look, when will you know, Cindy? And when will you really know? When will you know? When will you really understand? Forget about all of this about the science. Forget about all of this religious stuff. What about you, where you live? Your head, right between your ears. The whole world is. When will you know? And Jesus is very specific about when you will know. I want you to go to page 801, and I want you to look at Matthew 24. Okay? And in Matthew 24, on page 801, he's going to tell you when you will know. And you will not know before this. In Matthew 24, okay? And in Matthew 24, verse 15, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel stand in the holy place, let him understand. That's when you'll know, when you will see the abomination of desolation. And what is the holy place? The holy place is the temple. And it says in the Bible that God lives in a temple not made with hands. The temple is your mind. And what is the abomination? The abomination is the horror. And what is desolation? When you realize that the holy place in you is desolate. When you realize that you have a holy place in you and it's desolate and there's no life there and nothing happens there and nothing moves there, then when you finally have realized that, run to the mountain. But you're never going to understand until you realize that you have a holy place inside of you, and that holy place is desolate. which means you have not done anything in your meditation to stir life, and the vineyard is wasting away on the vine, and there is no life in there. It is desolate. You never go there. You leave it abandoned. There's not even jackals or anything there. It is a desert wasteland because you have been scared away from the most precious thing inside of you, which is the right hemisphere of your brain, which is the holy place, which is accessible through the single all-seeing eye, which is accessible through your meditation. When you finally realize it is desolate, it is a wasteland, then you will start to go there, and then you will start to till the soil, and then the tree of life will start to grow again. It can't happen until you become aware. And what have you got to become aware of? Yourself. When you become aware of yourself. Flee into the mountains, he says, right? But I want to ask you a question. Who made your holy place desolate? Who made your temple desolate? Go to page 633 to our friend Jeremiah. Page 633. And I want you, what you said, Carol, and you, I know you know, but that's not good enough. I want you to see it. It's not good enough for my opinion. It's not good enough for your opinion. I've got you to, you have to see who made it. Who's responsible for the fact that you didn't even know you had a Pia Mater. You didn't even know the Holy Mother dwelled inside of you. You didn't even know the right hemisphere of the brain was the temple of God. You didn't know it was accessible by the all-seeing eye. Who's responsible for that? Jeremiah, page 633. Jeremiah chapter 12. And in Jeremiah chapter 12, I want you to read with me, and please look at it closely and go to verse 10. And look what it says. Many pastors have destroyed my vineyard. They have trodden my portion underfoot. They have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness. Wow. So now we know. Well, how do you know, Bill, that the vineyard that you're talking about is the holy place? How do you know it's the right hemisphere of the brain? How do you know? I mean, you're making this up. How do you know? I don't make things up. You know, and I don't tell you something unless you can see it documented for yourself, because that's important to me. So how do I know what I am talking about? I want you to look at page 505, and I want you to look on page 505, and I want you to look at Psalm chapter 80. And in Psalm chapter 80, I want you to look at verse 15. And the vineyard which your right hand has planted, and the branch which you made strong for yourself. The vineyard is the right hand. It is the right side. It is the place where you sit at the right hand of the Father. Okay, real quick as we're wrapping this up, go to page 802, and then we'll be done here. In Matthew chapter 24 again, and Jesus is talking about the signs, and he says in Matthew chapter 24, would somebody be prepared to run with these and real quick and hand these out? I don't want you to do it right this minute. Would you? But just try to do it as quick, because I know they want to get out of here. But don't do it now. Whoa. Don't do it. Just hold it for just a second. And I'll tell you what to do. Yeah, I know, but I'll tell you when to run quick. All right, are you ready? Go with me now. We're closing down on this. We're talking about the signs that we're looking at now. Pegasus, Orion, Ursa Major, Virgo, all of these things that are happening in the stars, the new planets being discovered, and all of this kind of business. In Matthew 24, in verse 29, Jesus talks about the signs. After the tribulation, there shall the sun be dark, and he's talking about an eclipse. The moon shall not give her light. He's talking about eclipse, and the stars shall fall from heaven. Do you see that? Yes. Okay, we're talking about strange things happening in the sky. You know, even there's one part of the Bible that says the moon turns to blood, and they covered that in one of these astronomical programs, because when there is this certain type of eclipse, the moon gets blood red. You know, but people get literalized, and they think the blood's going to drip off the moon. It's not. Okay, all right, but I want you to go Matthew 24, verse 29. Go with me again, all right? And let's sun shall be dark and eclipsed, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And of course, Uranus is shaking the hell out of everything up there and moving everything all over. All right, would you give out those things as fast as you can? All right, come on. Hurry up. Hurry. Up. And if you want one of these little things they're sending out, just send your check. All right. Why don't you? Okay. We almost got, everybody got them? Okay. All right. Are they all given out? All right. Well, we're just having a little break here while we share a word. Maybe everybody can't get one, Ethel, because just like one row I'll have to share one with 2 people or something like that because we don't have enough. Okay, we're all set? Everybody got one? You can read this later. All right? You can read this whole thing later. It's from NASA, but please stay with me, all right? Where we go, Genesis 24:29. And it says, and the moon not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. I want you to look at the very first paragraph under the word Washington. And it says, an equal rarity, thousands of stars rushing to the core of a globular cluster. Like bees swarming to their hive is how the space telephone. It's go down to the very last sentence of that second column. It's a dense star cluster like a mini galaxy, said so-and-so. And then I want you to go down to the last sentence in the third paragraph. Spectra can tell us how far the stars are moving and whether they are moving toward us or away from us. And now I want you to go over to the very last paragraph, very last column to the right. Very likely that M15s have concentrated. The stars could be under the influence of one giant central object. And what it's talking about is the sign that was referred to in the Bible. The stars are falling. There are thousands of stars. And according to these very brilliant people, the stars are falling. There has been the eclipses and all of this kind of business, but the stars are falling, just like it said. And when you see all of these things, and what has happened? You have seen the sign in Pegasus. You have seen the sign in Virgo. And you have seen all of these things. You're in Matthew 24. Look at verse 30. And Jesus then says, and when you shall see all of these things, and then shall the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and all the tribes, and you shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. The word Uranus, if you look up the word Uranus in a dictionary, it means son of. And Uranus is the controlling factor in the Aquarian age. And Jesus said, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, enter into the house. And now you see Uranus. And now you've seen the white horse Pegasus. And now you've seen Virgo. See? Look carefully. Go to page 859. Look at the book of Luke. Look at Luke chapter 22. Luke chapter 22. You've seen that Uranus, the sign of the sun. See, listen. Please listen to me for a minute. What I'm trying to tell you, and I'm rushing, and I should be here. The sign of the Son of Man, Uranus, has appeared. He's in charge. The sign has appeared in Pegasus. The white horse of Zeus with the lightning bolts has appeared. The sign in Virgo, the Virgin, has appeared. It's appeared in Ursa Major. Those are the three. It's the three magi telling us about this stuff. You've seen all of these signs in the heavens if you're paying the least bit of attention. And look what it says on page 859 in Luke chapter 22, verse 10. Jesus said, hey, when you enter into the city, which means consciousness, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house. What house would you follow him with the pitcher of water into? The house of Aquarius. And all of these things that are happening in Aquarius. And in Luke 21, you see where you're at there with 10. Go to Luke 21, verse 25. And it says, and there'll be signs in the sun, and there'll be signs in the moon, and there'll be signs in the stars. And upon the earth there'll be distress and perplexity in the seas and the waves, and men's hearts failing them, and all of that stuff. And look what it says in verse 27. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud of glory. And all the signs, and the astronomers are saying, I can't believe what we're seeing here. For the first time in the history history of the world. They found a sun star with a planet circling on it, the second coming of a sun star. And then they found a third, and then they found a fourth. All of these things are happening all over the place, and the stars are realigning themselves. And Jesus says, when you see these things, what Jesus is saying, when you see these things, get the hell out of church and close your books and do something. And say, well, what do I have to do? And in verse 28, Jesus says, and when these things begin to come to pass, then look up. Look up and lift your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. For God's sakes. And you don't have to go to church. You can turn on CNN and they'll tell you all about it. Look up. Go out and look up and see it. For your redemption. What does that word mean? Do you ever go down to Atlantic City and you hit the slots and you go over with your coins? Where do you go? You go to a redemption booth. And you turn in what you got for something better. And that's what he's saying. When you see all these signs, turn in what you've got for something better. Come on to the redemption booth. Now, I just can't leave you, walk out of here without something that, when AJ gave me this, along with this tape of the pyramids, there was something written on the walls of the pyramids, and it's called the Pyramid Text of Egypt. And I can't let you leave without you listening. It's taken me 10 seconds to read it. Now listen to the words very carefully. I fly up from you, low man. I am not from the earth. I am from the sky. This is written in the pyramids thousands of years ago. I have soared to the sky. I have kissed the sky as the falcon. I am the essence of God, the Son of God, the messenger of God. Behold, the faithful and loving Osiris has come as the stars of Orion, the beautiful one. And I have come that I may glorify Orion. My soul is a star of gold, and with Orion I will traverse the sky forever. And that's written in the pyramid text of ancient Egypt. So now you can know. Just like the astronomers and just like all of these people. Give me 1 second, right? Just like all of these people. Now you can look up. And you can see it. And you can get a pair of binoculars and see star 51 Pegasi. You can see it with a pair of binoculars. Yes, ma'am?
What I get from that is that there are extraterrestrials living up there in Orion's belt.
I wouldn't go that.
Falcon.
I would just wait until it happens. And then after it happens, say, gosh, look who's here. But I wouldn't assume where anybody's coming from. I was watching on television, and there are people. You see, the thing with me is I cannot tell you or anybody else anything that I can't document. I'm not allowed to do that. That's one of the instructions that was given to me for what my job is here. If you're going to, when you say anything, you document it. And I can't document that, so I can't say that yet. We can, think of things and make suppositions about things, and anything is possible. But right now, if you trust me with this stuff that I've told you, I have to be able to document and show you where this came from and who said it. And but you may very well be right. I saw people on television the other night. It was on one of the big networks, and they were saying these are people from another planet who are on this earth, and they were talking. There's guys in a white shirt and a tie and everything. I felt very comfortable with it, and I know that I know things that I shouldn't know, and obviously they came from somewhere. So let's just wait on all of these things and not try to jump ahead, because we might get in ourselves in a little wrong pathway. But these things are happening so fast, you won't have to wait long to find out. But I want you to, right now, do with what you have. You've got the documentation. If you don't have all of the documentation, please come to Joan and I'll see that you get the documentation. You've got the documentation. You've got the scriptures. You've got the voice of Jesus telling you to watch for the man with the pitcher of water, the white horse, all of this business which has come. And you have just talked about the signs that you'll see, which will be signs and stars, and never have the stars been as active as they are now. And Jesus, at that point, said, when you see all this stuff, look up. For your redemption draws nigh, which means things are going to change for you, and it's right on top of you. But you've got to be willing to get involved in this and get your meditation. Don't allow your meditation to fail you. Don't allow yourself to fail to show up and start tilling the soil of the vineyard at the right side and make it back into the pleasant portion it was once. It shouldn't be filled with weeds and debris. That's why you've gotten all the trouble, and that's why there's all the cancers, and that's why there's all the hurt and the violence and the drugs and the rapes and all of these things, because the pleasant portion of the garden is a wilderness and a desolate place. Open the gate, and it might creak a little bit, and you start working on it, and you do that through your meditation, and things will start growing in there. And you get rid of all the weeds and all the beautiful growth, and then one day there'll be a beautiful tree in the middle of your garden, and it'll be the tree of life. Okay. Thank you.